I'm Daryl Urbanski, and welcome to the Best Business Podcast. My mission is to help create 200 new multi-millionaire business owners. How? You'll do better when you know better. In my interviews, you'll hear from self-made millionaires, seven-figure business owners, authors, and world-class experts sharing how they did it so you can too without experiencing the same obstacles they did. Now, if you like this interview, please share it with a friend you think will benefit. They'll appreciate it, and I will as well. You can also connect with me on social media. Look for Daryl Urbanski, D-A-R-Y-L, Urban Ski, U-R-B-A-N-S-K-I, and add me so we can be friends. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy what I've prepared for you right here, right now. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Daryl Urbanski, your host as always, and today we are joined by my good friend, Dr. Nadia Brown. And Nadia is an authentic, bold champion for women business owners and those women who desire to become business owners. She is the founder of Doyenne Leadership Institute LLC. Through her coaching and workshops, she helps women break through the glass ceilings they encounter in business by helping them build profitable and sustainable businesses. When it comes to sales, women come to her timid and shaky about going after the money. They leave her strategic, strong, emboldened, and most importantly, paid. She is the author of Leading Like a Lady, How to Shatter Your Inner Glass Ceiling, and lives with her husband Toby in Phoenix, Arizona. I've asked her to join us today so we can all become a little more strategic, strong, emboldened, and of course, more importantly, paid. Nadia, thank you for joining us, my friend. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. Thanks for having me, Daryl.
Yeah, it's an honor and a pleasure. So we were having some good chit-chat before the call, and I think we hit on a couple of really great things I'd love to get into at some point. But before we get into any of that stuff, I'd like to hear a bit about your background. Obviously, you're kind of a role model and example, and even a leader for a lot of female entrepreneurs out there. But how did you even get started? Like, do you come from an entrepreneurial family? Is this something like, do you come from a long line of business owners, or how did you even get going?
No, actually, I did not come from a long line of entrepreneurs, and I was raised to go to college and get a job. Follow the rules, Nadia.
Right.
I did that. So I did everything they told me to do. I went to college, obviously, a lot, and got a great job. And I was like, this isn't working. I wasn't happy. I couldn't understand why I couldn't be like everyone else, just go to work and be happy and satisfied and not always strive for more. So eventually I left and ventured out on my own.
Got it. Okay. So what was your career? You left and started on your own. How did you get started? What did you get going into, and what were you doing in the corporate world? And, what kind of led you to where you are today?
I bounced around quite a bit. So I started out as an engineer in IT. So my bachelor's degree is computer engineering. So at one point I literally worked in a basement with a bunch of machines. And I moved around. I ended my career in financial services. At one point, I was also an adjunct professor in higher ed. So I did quite a bit in my career. And so when I left corporate, I decided that I wanted to work with women who were in those male-dominant industries, and they wanted to rise up through the ranks. So that's where I started. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So what were some of the biggest challenges for you in your business career?
I think one of the biggest challenges was, one, my desire to hide out in my office. And I quickly learned that it's hard to build a business when no one knows you exist. Right? You're like, okay. And then the second one was around sales. Like, how do I build a profitable business if I don't ask for the money, or I'm afraid to have those conversations? So those were probably the biggest two for me getting started.
So how did you overcome those?
The first one was relatively easy. I hired a coach, and one of the first things she looked at me and said was like, you belong on stage. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure I don't. But turned out she was right. I was wrong. I started speaking. And so I did a lot of speaking and traveling and on lots of stages, which helped the visibility. And it did help in some ways with the revenue, but consistent revenue really required me to face that monster of overcoming the fear of rejection and those sorts of things. And so it took a little bit longer for that one to catch up with me. But I just got to that point in my business where I was like, Nadia, you either have to figure this out, or you just need to go back and get a job. So I wasn't willing to give up on my dream. So I did what I had to do to get good at sales.
Got it. Okay. So what did you do to get good at sales?
Well, I took lots of training. So I did a couple different trainings with different people to learn the skills. But as we both know, it's not just the skills, it's also the mindset. And then I actually supported a team where I was doing sales. So I had the opportunity to have a lot of conversations and be in that position to just be told no a lot. But it gave me an opportunity to build my muscle in a relatively short amount of time. And so then I realized, you know what, Nadia, it's really not that hard. Like, you're just having conversations. Like, you've been making this way harder than it has to be.
Yeah, I think that's a real thing. I think there's a lot of people that build up, like fear kills more dreams than failure ever will.
Yeah.
Because people, they go to get on the phone or they go to sit in front of the person and they do it to themselves. They get all psyched out, like, oh my God, and they defeat themselves. I come from a martial arts background, and I've seen that with students of mine where they would want to go compete in like the annual tournament or something. And I'd see not just my students, but other people's students. First, because I like winning, I want to say that I had some great students and we brought home a ton of gold medals. I even took someone that had no background experience and in 8 months brought home 2 gold medals at provincials. So just to say that first and foremost. But you could see sometimes in matches when 2 guys would get on the mat or 2 girls, size each other up, one person mentally is already lost. You could just see it. Like, they stare each other down, and one person, you just see they seem more timid and afraid of the other person. So they're already on their heels and the fight hasn't even started yet.
Yep.
So I think that part's a really, really big thing about it.
The same is true in sales. I see people do it all the time.
Right. So how do you deal with your mindset? Because is it like a one thing, like you flip the switch and now you're done? You're like, oh, that was great. I'm glad I got that taken care of. Oof, on with the rest of my life. Or is it something you constantly have to work at?
It's a constant thing. It's so funny. I wish it were that easy, but I think, even though now I teach sales and I help clients, deal with that, there are days when I don't want to have sales conversations. There are days when I don't want to pick up the phone. I just don't want to go through the process. And so I think it's a day-by-day kind of thing to just, like you said, deal with it. Or maybe you're up-leveling, so now you're charging new prices. Like, there's always something new to challenge yourself. But I think, it's just thinking back on those times when you won and you faced the monster, if you will, and you defeated it. And you're like, if I did it, then I could do it now. And so just having those reminders.
Got it. So do you have like a ritual, a routine that you do or use? Like, how do you pull yourself out of that funk?
I love to take some time in the mornings before I dive into my day to have some quiet time. And then if I need to, I'll have a dance party. So I'll be here in my office and I'll crank up the music really loud. Most of the time I'm home by myself. I crank it up and I just have a good old fashioned dance party. And I'm like, all right, Nadia, let's do it. Let's get in here and do it.
Party of one.
Yes.
Whatever. As long as it works for you. So is that what you recommend for people that are starting out or struggling?
I would recommend that one, get help. I think one of the things, especially when you're starting out or even struggling, especially when it comes to certain things like money is one of those taboo topics. There's a lot of shame or embarrassment. And so people are afraid to reach out for help. So if there's a coach or a mentor or someone out there that can help you, get support. And if you have rituals and things that you can do to really get you in the right mindset, then definitely do it. But sometimes we just need someone there cheering us on, like that coach to just remind us, like, okay, you got this, you can do this. Here, take this step, now take the next step. Sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, we all need support at different times.
Yeah, that actually is really important. So, all right, so then what do you see are some of the greatest mistakes you see your clients and other entrepreneurs making?
Ooh, I think one, especially, I don't know so much for guys. I think guys are a little bit better at this than women, but sometimes I see us just try to take on too much. So we're trying to do way too many things at one time, and you can get really bogged down and off focus. And then the other thing is taking your eyes off of revenue.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Absolutely. There are a lot of things, as you know, that we could do in our businesses to make ourselves feel really great at the end of the day. Like, I did a lot of stuff. Right?
I cleaned. I worked on my logo. I wrote this email. Yeah.
I wrote a blog. I now have a funnel. Like, there are all these things that we can do, but are those activities generating the revenue? And I think that that's one of the things that is really easy sometimes with all the distractions that we have to take our eyes off of the revenue and our goals that we want to achieve.
That's awesome. So, man, we talked about this before. So you were just at a conference, and can you maybe, because we already started, but what happened? You were at a conference, and there was like a lady, and she was mad. Can you kind of explain the scenario?
Oh my gosh, I was at this conference, and it ended up being an all-female conference. It's all women, and I was talking to a woman who was really she was not feeling this whole sales thing. And she was really just pissed off. talk about sales and looking at different people in our industry, especially coaches who have done really well for themselves. And she just kept talking about cracking the code, and there had to be some trickery. And it was just really fascinating to watch this whole buildup of almost like us versus them, like there was this whatever. And I think some of it was just this notion that if you've been successful, then you somehow gotten it, in a way that wasn't ethical. And we do know people that have obviously done things that wasn't right, and they've been very successful, but I don't think it's universal for everyone. So it's really fascinating to watch the conversations around this, a lot of the fear around having sales conversations or really putting, ourselves out there. But at the same time, we're all entrepreneurs, and you can't have a business if you don't sell. It was really interesting around this, the anger. There was a lot of anger towards people who are successful, towards people who may do it in a way that you don't agree with. But that just means you just don't buy from them. Like you totally have the right to say no. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I've been doing a lot of Facebook Lives lately to just try and connect my own audience. I love doing these podcasts, but I love hearing from the people, the listeners, the person that's probably listening to this right now. I love hearing about them and their business and their stories. And I was doing a Facebook Live, and the question that someone had asked me was, what if I, as a business owner, want to stay in the office and service the customer because that is what I'm good at, and want to hire someone to go out and bring in the sales, but I don't have the money to hire that person. What do I do then? And in that answer, I think you already know where this is going, right? But I was like, you may want to just look into getting a job.
Right.
Because when you look up the word entrepreneur in a dictionary, it says a person who organizes a business or businesses. It doesn't say the person who answers the phone, mops the floor, does this, makes the sales, delivers the service, the product, or the phone. So I said, it's okay if that's what you want to do, but you have to find someone that can do the sales. And the less training you have, the more of the sale they're going to want, because they have to figure that out. Which is something I kind of want to ask you about that, because it's my understanding in all my experiences, you have to have experience in how to make the sales before you can really train somebody else on how to do that, right? You have to be able to provide them with the tools, and here's how I usually handle these objections, and here's maybe some recordings of past calls that I've done, things like that. And if you can't do that, if it's a soccer team, you can hire someone to be goalie. If you don't want to be goalie, then put someone in as goalie. But if the goalie sucks and they let a bunch of goals in, your team still fails. Like, as the owner, you are responsible at the end of the day for everything. Mm-hmm. And so, like when people get angry about sales, like this lady, it's like they don't quite get what a business is. And they just think that what they do is more valuable than it is. And unfortunately, cleaning the carpet or paving the driveway or driving the person from A to B, some people might think that's the most valuable thing. But actually, the most difficult thing is finding the people who need the help and are willing to pay for it. And so that's a huge valuable lesson right there. You don't need to drive the taxi. If you own the phone number that people call and you've put in the work that everybody calls that phone number when they need to be driven somewhere, you don't have to drive the car, right? That's how Uber owns. Yeah. So it's like for this person that asked that question, what do I do then? I said, well, you need to figure that out. And maybe can you speak to that? Like, what does somebody do in that scenario? They've got a product or service. They're maybe they've got up and down sales. They haven't really refined their sales process, and they want to try to onboard more people to help grow sales. Would you recommend they do that? Where do you recommend they start? How would you handle that sort of scenario?
That's a great question. One of the things that I provide for clients is sales support. So they can hire me and my team to come in and do that, or I can help them train and onboard their team. But for the person that you just described, I would say they need more time to figure it out. Like, you just need to get out there and face the monster. I don't think that hiring a sales team or bringing in someone is the workaround for not dealing with your own fear. Because like you said, you have to know to be able to speak to the challenges, the questions, the objections, the process. Like, it's more than just the conversation. And if you're just doing it out of fear, then that's a completely different conversation than one like, I've been doing this, I've built it up to this point, I have way more calls coming in that I can humanly possibly, can handle completely different position. And then that person can also afford to bring on a team. And so I say, just go out there and do it. Like, I almost feel like it's a rite of passage as an entrepreneur to get out there and be rejected and keep getting back up. Like, okay, yep, you said no. All right. Why did you say no? Let's refine the process and keep going versus, like you said, just being like, oh, well, I don't want to deal with my fear, so let's just pass this off to someone else. I would agree with you. Go get a job. That's what jobs do. They have a team that does the sales, that brings in the people, and you get to do your thing, whatever your thing is, and they pay you, and it's great. It's a great arrangement for those that want to do it.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of what helps is to have a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And what I mean is that to understand that sales, it's not a battle. It's not a contest where you show up and they show up and one's going to emerge victorious and the other one's going to emerge as a loser. I think that that's part of what really trips people up. You have to understand that it's a conversation and a process. It's like growing a plant or raising an animal, or, if no one's got a green thumb and they don't have any pets, it's even like dust collecting in your room. Like if you don't maintain it, if it's a car, we'll pick something. If you don't maintain it over time, like there's more than just the one-time event. Obviously when you sit down, you really can decide, did I make the sale, yes or no? And you can kind of don't want to give yourself the excuse or the out that I'll get him next time. I'll get him next time. But the reality is that some people need a few visits, a few phone calls, and it's a process. It's a conversation. It's okay to talk with people about that, to come from that place of being a stern but loving parent. And again, please correct me in any place if I misspeak, but I think that if people take a look at it from a growth point of view, where if you're just getting on the phone and really trying to get the person to open up to you and share with you what their pain is and what the problem is, and oftentimes people, when they tell you what the problem is, they have to go 3 layers deep, right? But really, it's always 3 or 4 layers deep, because people will be like, oh, well, fine, I'll use my relative. So his legs hurt. Well, why do your legs hurt? Well, because they're swollen because I've been moving so much. Okay, well, why are they swollen? Why have you been moving so much? Well, I've been sitting down a lot. Okay, well, why have you been sitting a lot? Well, I've been drinking a lot. All of a sudden, now we get to what the real issue is, right? And in that simple analogy, you can see if you just went from the superficial, oh, you got some leg pain? Oh, okay. Oh, your legs are swollen because your liver's shot. Do you know what I mean? You start getting to the real problem. And you have to understand that's the conversation. And until people will open that up and tell you that, it's really hard. You know what I mean? You're not in yet. You're not in. Once you get in, now you can really be loving and caring and look, you need to do this. This is what it's really going to take to get you where you want to go. And it might cost some money, but let's look at your alternative. Maybe not look at it as selling, but as in consulting people to the best solution for them.
Absolutely. I love what you said about growth mindset. And I liken it to, you always use the example of relationships. You're building a relationship with your clients and they may not say yes today, but, and part of the process when I train is ask a lot of questions. Sometimes we go in and we talk way too much. We think we know everything. And like you said, we go at surface level. And I tell people, slow it down, ask questions, and you just sit and listen and let people tell you, because sometimes they need time to talk it out. So I loved your example. Let's go a few more layers because there's something more to it. Tell me more about that. And even if they don't say yes in that conversation, like you said, it's not win, lose. You just kick them to the curb. No, you continue to build a relationship and you create a process where you check back in. Maybe they need it 3 or 4 months. Maybe they need it 2 days. You just never know. But if you're only focused on, did I get the sale today? Or that's the end of our relationship, then you're creating an environment that's really going to be tough to build on.
And it's almost hostile, right? Either you're in or you're out. You're with us or with them. And it really does come with treating people with love and care. I mean, if you think about it, again, if someone was suffering from arthritis, you knew there was a supplement, or you knew there was an exercise routine that cured 90% or even 100%, or even if only 70% people of it, and this person is suffering, and they were just, and they were really in a bad spot, negative thinking, just overwhelmed and frustrated, and all the baggage that can come with that. You would be a stern but loving parent, you know what I mean? And you would coax them on. Now, you do need to set time limits, and that you can't have an open window. Right. Can't be an endless timeline hey, I'm going to sit, you have to keep it punchy, because there has to be incentive for them to act, because that's the other thing is some people will just sit there and they'll just take up your whole damn day. Right. Right. So you have to try to, and you have to make meaningful progress in a reasonable amount of time. If you're not making reasonable progress or meaningful progress in a reasonable amount of time, it's best to just, I'll check back with you, leave some resources to help. So what are some of when you talked about that, you said focus and taking their eyes off revenue are the 2 biggest things that the clients that you have and the entrepreneurs in general that you see mistakes they're making. So what do you recommend to help keep people focused? And what do you recommend to have people keep their eyes on revenue?
Well, I recommend a couple of things. I love having accountability partners and tracking your money. I think some of us, and I see this more so with women, we don't pay attention to the dollars. We're just out here doing our thing. I just love all my clients. And really not keeping an eye on that. And so what I've done is I created a Google spread that there's nothing sexy about this at all. It's on.
But it works. That's pretty sexy.
Right? nothing sexy about it. It's a basic spreadsheet, but I share it with my accountability partner and it tracks my revenue. So I know that there's someone other than me that has the potential of looking at my numbers. Like, I don't think she ever looks at it, but I know that she could, should she decide, like, what the heck is Nadia over there doing with her money? And what's coming in. And so every time, you close a deal, it helps to keep track of that. And so I think that that's a big piece of it, is to be intentional about paying attention to those areas. And then the other thing is getting support. If that's something that you're not great at, then build your team. Stop trying to be all things to all people. And sometimes we are not that great at the money piece. So you hire someone, a financial planner, or whoever you need to help with that, versus just being stuck in the mud. So.
What you just said there for me identifies employee mindsets versus owner mindsets. Because when you're an owner mindset, you don't mind hiring people to get accomplished goals, right? There's only so many hours in a day. You can't get everything done yourself, so you're going to need help. Or sometimes you have people, like a great example is I've had a girl on my team for probably about 8 years now, and she started off with me. I think I was paying her $2 an hour. She was overseas, and she was just posting on Craigslist and Kijiji for me. Kijiji is a Canadian version of Craigslist. That's all it is. And it was for my martial arts school back in the day. And her English wasn't very good, but it was copy pasting. It wasn't very complicated. But she's been with me for 8 years now, or her pays multiplied a few times over. I've invested a lot in training her because she's got a ton of potential. And so she's extremely valuable, and she's just proven that she's likable, she's teachable, and she's very reliable. Those are three things that most employers have a hard time finding. So for me, that's worth it to invest in her. Now, if there's something that comes up, now I have her help with some of my social media stuff. But that wasn't her expertise. Now, she did do some work because I wasn't keeping her employed full time. So she was getting training elsewhere, but she wasn't where I wanted her to be. So I invested in coaching and training and products for her as a person to develop her in that respect. And so as an entrepreneur, I feel like that's a mindset that people can grow into role, and as a caveat to that, I'm against hiring people knowing I will have to train them. It's almost a pet peeve. I just happened yesterday. People are like, hey, are you hiring anyone? And I was like, well, what do you do? And they're like, well, what are you looking for? And I'm like, no, this isn't it. This isn't a buffet. Like, I'm not going to let you oh, well, I can do that. Like, really? Like, what's your superpower? Tell me what your superpower is, and then if I need that, I'll hire you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if anything, I try not to tell people with a job posting, sometimes you have to, but I really do. I want, tell me about yourself. What do you enjoy? What's your psychic income? Like, what gets you hot? Like, what invigorates you? What kind of work do you love doing? Because I'd rather, the physical income, of course, you can get paid physically. What's the psychic income? I don't want to just be, you know what I mean? And I think that that's a really, really, really important thing. But an employee mindset is that it's just the way it is, and you got to do what you can with what you got. And it's almost like I got to cut corners and cut expenses, and like this scarcity mentality, like this fixed income mentality. And I think that's a huge difference between an entrepreneur and someone that just shows up and clocks in, clocks out, and goes home, and it just becomes content with their lot in life, which is a powerful thing in and of itself. I think that's, not living in the future, not being like, I'll be happy there. I think there is power in that, but I think
No, and I agree with what you said. I think too, sometimes we limit our growth because we're the bottleneck. We're trying to do too many things. Whereas if I were to take, like you said, whether it's my social media, I suck at social media. It's not my thing. I want my social media to be just social. Like if I'm scrolling through my phone and I'm liking stuff like that works for me, but that's clearly not going to grow my business.
It's not going to move the needle for your
business.
Right.
So I need to have someone on my team that's an expert in that, and they can really leverage and run with it. And I think that's huge when we're like, nope, I'm going to try to do all these things myself. Or like you said, if I'm only looking at it being a fixed resource versus how can I get the return on my investment? And if I do bring this person onto my team, how can they help me to get to my goals faster?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power in that. Like, I just hired a coach recently for 10 grand US, but it's to help them relaunch something that I already made 7 grand off of. So if I did 7 grand with something that I kind of did half-assed, it's not a method that I'm very well versed in. I got some experience, yada, yada, yada. I did 7 grand. I'll take the 10 grand. It's basically free.
Right.
Because you're right. Like, this is going to be the best deal of the century. But some people, oh my gosh, it's 10 grand. Oh my. But I'm like, no, I'm going to pay the 10 grand. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to make at least 7. Like I did 7 grand last time. I'm probably going to do at least 7 grand this time. And if I have this person, you know what I mean? And they're holding me accountable, and they've done it before, and they've done over 5 million with this sort of thing. Like, I'm buying money at a discount. Here, take the 10 grand. I'm going to make 50, 100, $1 million off you in your help. So that mentorship thing is important. There's a great analogy for focus as well that I want to say for the listeners right right now, and that's follow one course until successful. FOCUS. Follow one course until successful. Because like you said, a lot of entrepreneurs can have that ADHD, right? Where they're left and they're right and all that sort of stuff. I think that's really, 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 really powerful.
Absolutely.
So sorry, you have an accountability partner, you got your revenue sheet, holds you accountable because you know someone's looking over your shoulder at it. What are some other habits that you feel that some of your best clients and the most successful entrepreneurs that you know have?
I pick up the phone. I'm not afraid to talk to people. I know that there's a lot of technology that I leverage. I love, like I said, social media to let somebody else manage that, email marketing, all these different things that we can do. And I also pick up the phone and I talk to people. And my clients do the same. They're finding that. They also track it in their courage diary. So they have this tool that now, one, are you picking up the phone? What are people saying? So you're also getting a lot of great real-time feedback as well from people. So you're talking to real people. You're tracking your revenue. You're learning your close ratio, like how many no's for your guests. There's so much value in really picking up the phone, and it's sometimes a lot faster than leveraging some of the other tools and processes that we use in business.
Picking up the phone. You mean you actually talk to people?
I do.
What? You actually talk to your customers?
I do.
Such a crazy concept.
I know. Wait, what?
Right? Well, I mean, if that's a surprise for anybody, you just understand all a company is a group of people solving the problem of another group of people via a product or service, one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
That's really it. You might learn to do them in batches, or you might schedule them so you can do a bunch in a day, but it's one at a time, and it's one group helping another group. So when you look up entrepreneur in the dictionary, it's not the person who answers the phone, mops the floor, cleans the toilet, does the taxes, makes sales, delivers the product. Not what it is at all. So your role is to organize the team. Your role is to be the project manager, the team leader, the organizer, the big kahuna, the chief. Right? I'm trying to think of some women words, leader words. The queen. There you go. The queen. We got he's and she's and in-betweens listening to this call. So I want to make sure we cover the whole spectrum. But your job is to be the ringleader, and the leader, and that's it. And so you can do the roles you like and not do the roles you don't like. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for the performance of everybody. So if you can't help them, you need to get someone that can help you train your team. It's just like a hockey team or a baseball team or a soccer team or a football team. If your team sucks and is the last one in the league, you need help, right? Even if you're in the middle, if you're set on winning the championship, you need help. And you're not going to do what you've always done, get what you always got, right?
Yeah.
So that's really powerful. So what do you think is some of the best advice you ever got for yourself?
Some of the best advice, and also is one of my favorite quotes. It came from my granny, and she said, anything worth having is worth fighting for.
Ooh, right.
Even with your business or your dreams or whatever, relationships, it doesn't matter what it is. And we all have those moments of disappointment or things don't go the way we thought they would. But is it worth fighting for? How bad do you want it? And so I really take that to heart, especially on those days when I'm looking at my business like, and why exactly am I doing this? I think a job would be so much easier. And I just remind myself that this is worth the fight.
Right. Winston Churchill, when he was Prime Minister of the UK, he went to the school and they asked him to speak. And the whole speech, from my understanding, and I think it's a great story, is he just stood up and he said, never, ever, 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 ever give up.
I love it.
And sat down. That was it.
The end.
That was the speech. The end. And so when people are like, well, I haven't made the sale yet. And so that's where they say you market to your prospects until they buy or die.
Mm-hmm.
And it, obviously it's a little bit like Green Eggs and Ham from Dr. Seuss. Like, would you eat it in a house? Would you eat it with a mouse? Would you eat it here and there? But it's also trying to make what you're offering a better fit for them. Either by actually making adjustments to what you're doing or by breaking it up, splintering pieces of it off or partnering with other people and coming up with deals. I mean, ideally, you want to get away. I mean, this is a bit of a slippery slope. There's a great book called Built to Sell, and that's about having a standard service offering where you only do this. You don't do everything under the sun. You're very specific in what you do and what you don't do because then you can train other people on doing it so that way you can get out and focus on managing the team and growing the business. And you can't do that if you're doing custom solutions for everyone.
Right.
So you have to be willing to turn business away. But on the flip side, when you've got prospects, right, you don't want to just give up on them. You don't want to harass them, hound them, and that's where if people are upset, whoa, okay, I'm going to leave you alone for a while. But you need to find indirect ways. Like if you're calling someone and you call them 4 or 5 times and they just don't seem interested, then maybe you shouldn't call them. But hey, maybe send them a postcard in a couple of with a coupon, or maybe target them online with some ads, or, like stuff like that. But again, it's tactful. It's dealing with people.
Yeah.
So I love that you like getting on the phone because, I mean, some of the most successful people I know in business and in sales, they started with door-to-door sales or telephone sales. In fact, one of the guys that sold me so well, unfortunately, anyways, we won't go down that road. But I was in awe of this guy. He used to watch the Shopping Network all the time, and he cut his teeth doing phone sales for some, I don't know the company, but he got so good at it. And now you can leverage that with technology today. I mean, you can have a teleseminar and have hundreds of people on there. You can do a webinar.
Yep.
Have hundreds of people in there. You can speak on stage, sure, that's 1 to 20, but it starts off with knowing how to do the one. If you can't sell one person, you can't sell 4 or 5 at a time. You can't sell 4 or 5 at a time. You can't sell 20, 30 at a time. You got to crawl and then walk and then run.
I agree.
So what do you think are some of the future trends of sales in the industry? There's all sorts of technology coming out and there's all these fancy gadgets and tools. Where do you really see things kind of going?
I see people going back to kind of like what you were saying, going back to some of the basics. And I love technology. I love technology, but I see it as a tool. And I think sometimes we try to use it as a way to hide. And so definitely, like you said, picking up the phone, building relationships, maybe really going back old school and wooing your clients. Like, what if you took them out to lunch? Like, what about that? So I think that there's going to be more of that in some ways and less of the just throwing a bunch of stuff at people with no real connection. Like, I think our clients are looking for that connection, and how can we give that to them while we service them?
So having real bonds, real connection, actually caring about them and who they are and what they're about and it's almost like you're out to like help somebody. That's so crazy, right?
Like
That's such a weird
care.
Such a weird concept. I mean, but that's really what it comes down. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And so I think what's really resonating for me for your approach is be willing to have conversations, be willing to be rejected, be willing to not be a good fit, be focused on helping them, get yourself out of the picture. It's not about you, it's about them. Get yourself in a good mindset because people don't want to deal with people who are grumpy and in a bad mood and stuff. So you got to start off in a good mood, right? Otherwise, you're just bringing rain into someone's day and that's just setting you up for failure. So if you show up and you're a bit of sunshine in someone's day or a positive beat in their, in the rhythm of their day, they'll at least lend you an ear and then get a conversation going and talk about, and then try and get a few layers deep, and if they ask and they try to flip it at you answering questions, because that's something you do have to control the conversation a little bit with questions.
Absolutely.
Which means having a goal. Look, I know you're busy. I don't want to waste a lot of your time, but I want to ask about blank because I'm really passionate about blank. And I came here because I wasn't really sure. Just think of it. Like, I remember when I was in line to come back from the Philippines and I saw a couple with their dog on a leash and they had like a kennel, like the crates, and they were lining up and it was like to check in your bag before you go through security, get your anal probed and then get on the plane. They're just getting crazy with security these days.
They are.
And I had gone through a ton of hassle with my dog. And so when I went over, obviously I didn't have anything to sell, but I didn't just go, have you done your research? Because for me, it was a really stressful procedure to get the paperwork to bring my dog when I did do it. And I hadn't done it that time because of it. So I just asked, I was like, hey, and I was petting their dog. Hey, I'm okay if I pet your dog like I miss mine. And I just started to ask, like, have you guys done this before? Like, are you familiar? And I just asked a ton of questions and just sincerely curious. And if I had something to sell, it would have been really easy for me, but they already had everything covered. And so that was an opportunity. When I asked them, I actually learned something from them. And so now, next time I go back, I'll bring my dog, and I found an easier way to do it. But that's where, again, as a sales rep, just have that conversation. Look, I'm just curious. I want to make sure you're doing things the right way. I just want to help. And it's that stern but loving parent thing. Again, if someone's suffering from arthritis, if you really believe in what they do and they seem to just blow you off, just show up again. Hey, all right, I'll get out of your hair today. Let me come back tomorrow. Right? And that's what it is. And if you're not in an industry that's making you enough money to do that sort of thing, then you maybe need to consider selling something else.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you're spending all this time chasing down people and you're only making $50, then that could be tough. And you get paid in relation to the size of the problems you solve.
Absolutely.
That's something I say, like, if your only problem is, I got to get across town, well, you can walk. You can get a bike for a couple $100. I'm lazy. I don't want to have to work so hard myself. Okay, well, you could share transportation with a bunch of other people and it only costs you a few dollars, and that's called public transportation. Yep. It'll get you there, right? You won't have to work so hard, but it won't be a direct route. Well, I want to go more directly. Okay, well, you can pay someone to drive you there, right? You can get a cab or an Uber or whatever. Yeah, okay, but I want to be able to come and go at my place. Well, then you can rent a car. I want to actually have it and, long term and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, then you can buy a car. And each of these are greater price points. Yep. As you go up. And so, again, for anyone listening to this, if they don't feel that there's enough money to be made in what they're doing, then perhaps you need to sell a higher priced product, or you need to align yourself with other businesses and cross-sell. And that way you can share warmer prospects. So you don't have to dig so hard. You don't have to fight so hard for the sale. You know, if you're someone that installs pools, maybe you can refer business back and forth to lifeguard. Lifeguards of people in the pool. You know, you're here every day of the week. Have you ever thought getting a pool in your backyard? I know it sounds big and expensive, but you don't have to dig a big hole. Let me just send you over to Jerry. And, you know, Jerry can give you a quote, talk about some things. You know, just you can practice some of the stuff you do in the pool because, you know, some days you don't want to come all this way, blah, 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 blah. You share people back and forth.
Yeah.
And that might be a better way to share warmer leads and traffic to not fight so hard.
That is so good. I think we're going to see more of that too, Daryl. Yeah, I think that people are realizing that, yes, I could do a lot of stuff on my own. And like you said, but we could do a lot of stuff together when it's a good fit and it makes sense. How can we better service clients together? And so I'm starting to see that in some of my circles where people are like, you know, you're really good at this. I'm really good at this. But together, you know, and it's working. So.
So do you have a process that you walk people through in helping develop, like refine their sales process or identify how to qualify leads better? Or, you know, like, is there a step, like, where should people start? If people are listening to this and they're like, well, obviously I want to make more sales and I like everything that they're saying. Where do I look at my business and where do they start? Where should they focus? Like, should they focus on generating more leads? Should they focus on, you know, talking to past customers? Where do you think they should begin?
I usually tell my clients to start by picking up the phone. And it depends on where they are in their business. So the biggest challenge is they just need to generate more leads. They don't have enough data just yet to figure out where to necessarily make a lot of the changes. And there are those that have customers and they're like, okay, what do I need to do? So depending on where they are, I would say just start picking up the phone. So start by talking to past clients or talking to people that you think might be a good fit for your core offer. And I tell them just go through. Most of us can go through our cell phones and easily get 100 people. Or you can look at your social media. Like, we're connected to a lot of people. But it's a matter of being willing to pick up the phone and let people know what you're doing and then ask the question of who do they know that might be a good fit. So they might be the good fit or someone they know might be a good fit. So that's typically where I have most people start, especially if they don't have enough leads and they're not having enough conversations. Some of my more advanced clients, like one of my newer clients, we just started working together within the past week or so. She's at that point. She's been at it for years. So she knows how to do the sales. She's generating a revenue. And she's like, Nadia, the problem where I'm becoming the bottleneck is because I'm also doing some of the fulfillment and I'm wearing the hat of CEO. I'm managing all these people on my team. I don't have the time now to go back and have all these conversations, whether it's with new prospects or even past clients, to see how I can best support them. And so that's where I come in and I'm like, well, I can do that for you. I can support you in that way. So it really depends on where they are, where I would tell them to start. But a lot of it, for most people, they're just not having enough conversation. So how do you generate more leads, whether it's speaking or lives or leveraging technology? But a lot of times we can do that by just picking up the phone.
Pick up the phone. Pick up the phone, talk to past clients. And talk to potential prospects. Tell them what you're doing. Ask if they know anyone that may benefit from it. Have a conversation about it. Ask them about their situation related to what you do. Get 3 layers deep. Stay focused on helping them. Find out what their goals are. Because this is the other thing that I think a lot of people get wrong with sales is that you can't really convince anyone. Like, you can't sell ice to an Eskimo. Right, which isn't the technical. You can't sell ice to an Inuit person, right? I should know that because my brother's actually up there right now. Oddly enough, he's way north Canada in Iqaluit, which is like the northernmost city, building houses right now. So you can't do that sort of thing. You know, you have to tap into an existing desire. And I think if there's any secret to sales, that's probably it. You can't create desire in someone. You have to tap into something that's already there. And so you have to find the group of people with the desire and then tap into it. Tap into the people and get them to know, like, and trust you, and then they'll join your, you know, it's like if you guys are going on a road trip and there's 5 cars and people are picking which car to go in, right? You can't convince people to go somewhere. They're already going that way. You just now have to talk to them. You know, you're really sensitive to temperature. Well, check it out. I love having the car nice and cool. You know, come on, hop in my car, you know, like find that. And there's going to be something for everybody. Or people will choose the best one. If there's not something for everyone, they'll go for the one that's the closest fit for them, and so just be honest, and even be willing to be honest about your flaws and shortcomings. Set expectations really well up front. You're better to underpromise and overdeliver than to overpromise and fall short, because that'll only shoot you in the leg, especially in this day and age. When people go to buy stuff, they go online, they look up reviews. First, they do the research on all the options available. They narrow it down to a couple that they think they're interested in, and then they go through all the different reviews. They want to see what people have experienced when they come out on the other end. And then after, they start shopping around for coupon codes and promo codes and discounts.
Yep.
And then it depends on the situation. There has to be some sort of urgency or scarcity event. I got to get in because the promo ends soon. Or, man, I got to go in because my car's not running and I got this trip. There's got to be some looming deadline over their head somehow. And you can manufacture that as a business owner by having regular promotions and bundles. And I encourage people to make bundles and add value versus discounting, because you don't want to discount too often. I mean, think about when you go to the grocery store. You're like, oh, I should get some tomatoes. Wait, I'll wait till they go on sale. You don't want to have people do that with your business, right?
Absolutely.
Don't discount as much as you can avoid it, and just follow that formula. I think that's a fantastic little checklist, Nadia, that you gave people. Now, is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have asked you about sales, about how to do this well?
One thing I did want to point out, because you talked about being able to tap into the desire. And I think sometimes we've been taught to really focus on pain and all of that good stuff. And, there are people that really love that and others that it causes them to, their hackles raise. But I think, to your point, like you said, we're dealing with a much more savvy buyer in terms of just the access that we have to information these days. And so a lot of times, by the time we talk to someone, they're already aware of their pain. But to your point, we don't really need to tap dance on the pain. They're talking to us about it. It's focusing on building the relationship, building the connection, the know, like, and trust factor, but also really focusing on that desire. And are you willing, or do you have the desire to face the pain and move past it so that you can get to what it is that you say you desire in that big vision? And so I think it's really key. So like you said, I can't convince anyone of anything. It's, are you willing to do the work, and are you ready to take the actions? And do you trust me to be the one to help you get there?
And there's something about just being active. Like, the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I think that's something we should mention as well, because for the people that are self-conscious and, concerned about that, but some of the best people that you may think they're better than you out there, are they available for that person? Are they able and willing and there to help them at that point in time? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's people that are like, oh, but so-and-so has a TV show and they're so much better. Yeah, but so-and-so can't fulfill everybody. And so, you know what? You're the runner-up. You can either be happy about it and collect the money, or you can just be just feel sorry for yourself and get no experience. Because the one thing you did mention about how you got good was that you got a ton of practice in, right? You got a ton of practice. You supported a team doing sales, and you got a ton of practice in. And so, I mean, it's just about getting out there. And so, sure, there might be a better, and somewhere in the middle of nowhere in India, there may be some yogi who's connected with the rest of the universe and yada, 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 and all this sort of stuff. And they may be better than you. But guess what? That's not available to the person that's on the phone with you right now.
Right. Your bank account never asked, were you runner up or were you first place, Nadia? It was like, well, you know what, cha-ching, right? So I think sometimes, to your point, our egos get in the way too much.
Right. Well, and I mean, I remember I was in a coaching group, a long time ago now. Now I run more coaching groups than I join, but I was in a coaching group, and there was a guy, he was a marriage counselor. And, he was really convinced that he needed more schooling and training and education to be able to grow his business. That's how he thought. He was like, yeah, but if I get certified in this, I'll be able to do this for people. And we're like, well, wait a minute. You've already gotten 7 years of schooling in, right? Like, slow down, cowboy. You already got 7 years of schooling in. And right now, where we were in Jersey at the time, and where we are in Jersey, how many couples are there in an 8-block radius that you could help with the knowledge you have right here, right now, today? And he goes, oh, well, probably a few hundred, because there's all these massive buildings, right? And we're like, okay, and how many do you need to have a full practice? And he was like, 100, 200 would be a really busy, that would keep me busy. So we're like, all right, you don't need more training, more skills and education. You already got enough to help everybody. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, So you don't have to be the best out there. You just have to be better than the other options around you, and then be focused on continually improving. And that's something that everybody, your product, because everything's growing and moving forward. So you constantly got to be, R&D is just a fact of life and business. If you're not, you're just going to one day wake up and your product and your service and you are going to be outdated. But that is something I wanted to say just to the point that we've been making here. You're worth it. You're good enough. The fact that you're even interested in helping people puts you in the running. If you're sincere with your intentions, you deserve a chance. And so, just get on the phone. Just pick up the phone. Just pick up the phone. Right? And then when you get really good at the phone stuff, you can start doing things like trying to scale it, getting on stages. hosting teleseminars and running ads and such to get hundreds of people to sign up, doing webinars where now you can sell to one-to-many and scale. And then the beautiful thing is then you can automate some of those with technology, and now you can get to enjoy some of the luxuries. But to get there, you have to get the groundwork going, right?
Absolutely.
So well done. So is there anything else that we should talk? I'm really glad you brought that up because I think there were some juicy gems in there. People listening to this may want to listen to the interview a couple more times just to make sure, because we covered a lot of really, really, really good foundational stuff that I think it doesn't matter what level of business you're at, whether you're new and you've never made $1, whether you've kind of been making some money and you can't support yourself, whether you're earning an income off your business but you wish it could grow, or whether you're balling. I think this call had something for everyone. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on?
Well, I just wanted to share how people could connect with me. One of the resources that I did mention was the Courage Diary. And so if they're interested in going, they can download a complimentary copy to leverage that in their business. Just go to couragediary.com and enter their information, and that'll be there for them. And then if anyone's interested, okay, Dr. Nadia, like you said, you guys talked about a ton of stuff. How can you support me? You can schedule time for us to chat, and you can just head on over to meetwithdrnadia.com.
There we go. So we had the Courage Diary?
Yes, Courage Diary.
Right, couragediary.com.
Right.
And go get that free diary, which will help you with your mindset and the confidence that you need when you get on the phone to call these people, to be confident enough to do it right and be there to serve that other person. Then you get on the phone with Nadia, go to drnadia.com.
Meetwithdrnadia.com.
There we go. Meetwithdrnadia.com. Nadia. There's no period in that. It's not like dr.nadia, right? It's just meetwithdrnadia.com.
Correct. No period.
Perfect. So Nadia, thank you so much for joining us today. I think this was an extremely valuable call. I got a few pages of notes. Hopefully our listener took down some notes as well. And I know you could have been doing some other stuff, helping some other people. So I appreciate you coming and sharing with my audience. And I just wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thanks, Daryl. Thanks for having me.
You've reached the end of our interview. Now, first, let me thank you for listening. I appreciate and respect you more than you'll ever know. And now I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. First, what 3 lessons did you just learn? What 3 aha moments just jumped out at you? Second, what can you implement for yourself and your business in the next 24 hours? Third, what can you give to someone else to help you with, or give to them to just do it for you? Whatever it is, remember taking action is the secret sauce to results. Now, if you think this interview would be helpful for a friend, please give them a link to it. It'll help them and it'll help me too. I'd also like to invite you to help me find out more about the challenges you're facing, your dreams, your goals, and how I can help you overcome what's holding you back. We both do better when we know better, and your success is my success. So please reach out and interact. You can visit our website, bestbusinesscoach.ca for Canada or California, where I'm from and where I'm living. You're welcome to also try out one of our paid programs. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, and pretty much every other social media channel you can think of. You should also subscribe to the podcast, and if you're enjoying them, please leave us a nice review. It really helps. That's all for now. Once again, thank you. Take care of yourself, and remember, the world needs the best business you can build. And I believe in you.
So look, I was privileged enough to sit in the room the other day and listen to Daryl present.
I had the great fortune to spend some time with Daryl Abrinsky during this week, and we had an incredible 2.5-hour presentation with Daryl.
Daryl was amazing. I got so many little nuggets of wisdom.
I hadn't heard Daryl speak before, but what struck me from his presentation was
he's one of these hidden masters in the internet marketing world who's worked on some pretty incredible launches.
Daryl has a ridiculous amount of knowledge.
Daryl Abrinsky's presentation was absolutely great. I really loved
an incredible knowledge of numbers. He is a very articulate, very knowledgeable, very advanced marketer.
Well, he talked a lot about keyword tools and how to research your niche.
So it really created a lot of predictability around moving forwards in our business with the marketing and sales aspect, which is so important to any business to really see it grow.
Where he walks you through step by step
how to judge in detailed form how much money you could potentially make from a market based on AdWords, keyword research, and putting together quite complex Excel spreadsheets.
it. And what I took away from it is not only understanding your niche market, but also looking at and breaking down and going, am I working with the right niche? Is there enough demand there for me to be able to reach my goals? And doing that hard research.
There's a lot of gurus out there that present you a lot of the why and the what, but they don't necessarily give you the how. And what I really found with Daryl's presentation, there's no holding back. There was no holding back the screens or the curtains. Like, everything was given to really assist us.
His feasibility and due diligence is incredible, and he was able to show us in a really short space of time how to cut through the overwhelm.
You're giving us the exact tools that we can use to test something before we even go to start testing it by spending money on it.
One of the biggest nuggets that I got out of his presentation was that when people pay, they pay attention, and when people pay a lot, they pay a lot of attention. I just love that. I think that's a great way to look at how to price yourself.
And he was a great speaker, lots of energy, and it was really great to spend time with him.
Honestly, phenomenal presentation.
I would love to catch up with him, next time I'm in this part of the world.